let's get to our top story then. The body of an Israeli hostage, Elad Katzir, has been recovered by the Israel Defense Forces, or IDF, following an overnight raid in Khan Yunis. Katzir was abducted by Hamas militants on October the 7th, exactly 6 months ago today, from kibbutz near Oz. Let's talk to Noga Tarnopolsky, a journalist in Jerusalem. Noga, hello.
Hi, Henry. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm just wondering how you're feeling today, exactly 6 months to the day that the Hamas attack took place, killing so many people and plunging Israel into trauma.
Right. Well, I want to quote for you a banner that began to appear among the families of hostages in recent days, and that's been carried forth by the anti-Netanyahu protesters. And it reads, "We're all hostages." And I think that the drama being lived today by the Katzir family, who've had 3 of their members kidnapped, is really very, very gripping. I want to remind you that Elad's mother, Hannah Katzir, was released in the hostage deal in November after Hamas had announced that she had been killed. And his father is still, if he's alive, in Gaza. And the sister, before the army even made this announcement today, Elad Katzir's sister posted on Facebook an absolute heartbreaker, saying that he could have been rescued and that the blood is on the prime minister's hands and that everyone who's allowing these hostages to rot in Hamas dungeons is responsible. The army then had a press conference and said that they believe he was killed by his captors shortly after the second hostage video in which he appeared, so sometime in mid-January.
The pressure is, of course, mounting on Prime Minister Netanyahu and the war cabinet, and it will increase because of the recovery of Elad Katzir's body. But he's also under pressure from outside too, because the World Central Kitchen and the British Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron, have called for an independent investigation into that airstrike on Monday that killed 7 aid workers. How are people responding to the IDF's explanation that it was a series of grave mistakes?
I think that among the Israeli public, the IDF's interim explanation has been basically accepted. You know, it came out on a weekend, so there haven't been reactions. We're going to see the first serious reactions tonight at the time of the weekly protests. And I think there will be certainly mention of the World Central Kitchen disaster among the speakers at the main protest sites. I should say that it's a pressure chamber even worse than what you've just described, Henry, because the Polish government, if I'm not mistaken, also the Australian government, they had nationals killed. And they're, like Lord Cameron, they're all asking for a further independent investigation, although they accept thus far the explanation given by the Israeli army, which, while it still lacks very important details, is basically a massive mea culpa, saying that mistakes and actions contrary to standing military orders are the ones that caused the disaster.
And of course, pressure because of the rising death toll in Gaza. It's just been announced by the Hamas authorities that the number killed is now over 33,000. Pressure on Joe Biden, President Biden, from Democrats, including former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, saying you've got to stop arms sales to Israel. The former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says this would be insane. How worried are Israelis about dwindling Western support?
Israelis are very aware of the dwindling Western support. I would say in particular the pressure from Biden in the United States. It's not just Nancy Pelosi, incidentally. Another very important woman is Jill Biden, who Joe Biden, speaking to Muslim citizens at an iftar a few days ago, Joe Biden said his wife is demanding that he bring an end to the fighting in Gaza, flat out. So there is growing pressure. Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, has been unwell. He had mysterious surgery this week. He's 74. He's on trial for corruption. He's very, very unpopular. And he's in a bit of a bind because the world and many Israelis are demanding he bring what is, I think, indubitably a catastrophic war to an end. And that he, on the other hand, has coalition partners who threaten to leave him and therefore topple him from power if he does just that. So I don't know what direction this may go at. And I would add that Israelis as a society still remain really traumatized by the events of October 7th. And I don't think they have any confidence that the country or they themselves are much safer today.
Yeah, because the big appeal of Benjamin Netanyahu over the last quarter century is I, Bibi, am the guy who's going to keep you safe. And the US have warned there might be possible imminent Iranian retaliation after the airstrike on Damascus killed 7 revolutionary guards. What is the state of alert in Israel right now for a possible Iranian retaliation?
I like how you just said IBB.
Indeed.
He has always liked, yeah, he's always liked to call himself Israel's Mr. Security, and he's been head of government during the worst security catastrophe and has taken no responsibility for it. It's also worth saying that during the last 15 years that Netanyahu's been talking up his security credentials, Iran has only come closer and closer and closer to nuclear weapons status. The state of alarm in Israel today and in all Israel diplomatic missions around the world is at the highest status. There are hourly reports on Israeli radio and TV about an American assessment that an Iranian attack against Israel will be, quote, proportional and is expected to come before the end of Ramadan. So if we include Eid al-Fitr in that, we're talking about within the next week. And Israelis are really shaken, I'd say.
Noga Tarnopolsky, live from Jerusalem. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on Times Radio.